Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie, and I am here to talk to you today about whatever is on my mind. This is not a makeup tutorial. I feel like I need to say that every single time because when people see a YouTube video of somebody putting on makeup, they automatically assume it's a tutorial. This is not. This is just me hanging out, telling you whatever's on my mind. And today, I have a few things on my mind. So let's get into it. So I have been struggling through this pandemic for lots of different reasons. One of them, though, that has really been bothering me, it's been on my mind, is the fact that I have put on the much discussed COVID-20. I don't know if I don't weigh myself, so I don't know if that's an accurate number. I just know that I feel a lot more fluffy than I did before the pandemic. Now, to be fair, back in June, I did have surgery on my ankle, which left me unable to do a lot of physical activity. But the reason I'm bringing this up today is because I am seeing more and more people feeling a measure of disappointment with themselves because they've put on weight in the middle of a pandemic. First of all, let me tell you something. We are in the middle of a crisis. And if you're an American, you know that this is far bigger than just the pandemic. There's a lot going on here. And there's a lot of uncertainty about our future. And it's very stressful. The pandemic has been stressful. The results of the fallout from the pandemic has been stressful. If you've had any further complications in the middle of the pandemic, that makes it even more stressful. And the thing that happens when we're stressed is we tend to, if we're chronically stressed, we're going to gain weight, because when you're stressed out, your body naturally craves foods that aren't good for you, because when you're stressed out, you're producing cortisol, which is, a fight or flight response that your body has. So your body, if you're constantly stressed out, is constantly thinking that you're in an emergency situation that requires, energy supplies that can be quickly utilized. And newsflash, a lot of the garbage foods out there, a lot of the junk that we try to avoid if we're eating healthy, that is the kind of stuff that your body can metabolize pretty quickly and put to use. So when you're constantly stressed out, whether it's from, the world burning down around you, or work, or whatever it might be, it is not it's not surprising that you might gain weight in the middle of all that, because you're going to naturally be craving things that are just not that great for you, because that is what your body can quickly tap into to get those energy resources it needs for what it perceives as an emergency situation that requires a fight or flight response. So, so my struggle with my weight is a lifelong thing. And so I've learned a lot over the years about weight gain and weight loss, and how to go about doing it in a healthy way, how to do it in a less healthy way. I mean, I have been up and down the scale. That's irritating. There we go. Sorry about that. I have been, the numbers have been up and down my entire life, particularly my adult life. So I know a few things. Let me share with you a little bit of my story. So when I look back at pictures of myself as a child, I was, a pretty average sized child. There weren't really any pictures of me as a young child where, I was carrying around a few extra pounds and people were concerned and blah, blah, blah. There was really none of that. But I got bullied a lot as a kid. We didn't have a lot of money. So I got picked on for being poor, and you know, just not having the nicest clothes, and I was very shy, and it was very easy to make me cry back then because, you know, I just really wanted people to like me, and I wanted friends, and the only people who were paying attention to me were people who wanted to make fun of me. So it was very easy to make me cry back then because I didn't like getting that kind of attention, which I would imagine nobody really does. And I would have preferred to be ignored than to be paid attention to just to be made fun of. And my bullies certainly knew that. So, you know, making me cry was kind of a favorite pastime for a lot of people at recess. So when I was little, I didn't have a lot of issues with weight, but as I got older, that changed a lot. Especially after we moved, because we used to live in like a more, I don't know, I guess that doesn't really matter. But after we moved when I was about 10. We moved from kind of a more diverse and urban area where there was lots to do, and even though I didn't have a lot of friends, I could still, you know, there was always stuff to do. And then we moved up here to northern Michigan, and that changed. We moved to this tiny town where everybody knew everybody, and if you weren't born and raised here, you kind of weren't really considered part of the community, or it took a very long time to become part of the community. And, you know, even though I didn't have many friends, I did have some, and I missed them. And I learned that food was a great source of comfort for me. And so I started eating a lot. And by the time I was done with high school, I weighed over 200 pounds as a 17-year-old kid. Fast forward, you know, life is what it is. You know, I struggled with depression, as I've mentioned in previous videos, and I still struggle with that sometimes. That's not gone away by any means. You know, I kept gaining weight. I was not coping with life well at all, and I just kept putting on the pounds. By the time I was in my mid-20s, you know, I got to the point where I just didn't care anymore because I was tired of fighting against what seemed like an inevitability for my body to just hold on to weight and be, you know, obese. I didn't understand at the time that, you know, stress played a part and untreated mental illness played a part. I didn't get all that. All I knew was I did not, you know, I felt depressed, and I knew that food helped. That's all I knew. So by the time I was in my mid-20s, I weighed almost 300 pounds. And I knew people who had had gastric bypass surgery, and I thought, you know what, maybe that's what I need to do. You know, I can't seem to get this thing under control by myself, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I did. And when I had surgery, I had this idea in my head that if I could just lose weight, if I could just get my body down to the size and the weight that I would like it to be, my life will be better. I'll meet people who actually care about me. I'll, you know, maybe start dating, because, you know, by my mid-20s, I still had not really had any serious relationships. And the reasons for that are many, and it's almost has nothing to do with my weight and everything to do with how I was raised, but that's a whole other video. You know, I just thought that after I lost weight, life would just get so much better. So I lost about 125 or so pounds. And much to my surprise, life did not magically improve just because I was now thin. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then in 2007, I was diagnosed with cancer. Throughout the course of my cancer treatments, I lost so much weight. The doctors told me, you need to just do what you need to do to keep the weight on. Eat whatever you need to eat. You know, if you need to live on cake. You know, I mean, they didn't say this, but it's basically like whatever you need to do to keep the weight on, do it, because you're losing too much. And I was like, awesome. So I did that, you know, and I didn't really gain a lot of weight from that because I was so sick all the time. You know, I didn't gain anything. And in my very warped way of thinking about myself, I thought, hey, this is awesome. I can eat all these foods that comfort me and make me feel better and not gain anything. How cool is that? And I was actually kind of, in a very distorted way, proud of myself that I had lost so much weight. I actually had to be told to stop losing it. When you're in a place in your life when weight is so important to you that being dangerously thin feels like an accomplishment, something's not right, okay? And I hope that we're on the same page about that because I was so thin back then. I mean, you could see my ribs. It was hard to sleep because I was so thin. The pressure points from my old mattress just hurt so much, and I couldn't get into peaceful sleep, not even with the substances I talked about in my last video. It was just I was not in a good place. My health was not good. My mind was not in a good place. I was just not doing well. But because I was thin, I thought, well, at least I have that going for me, right? Well, 2008, I meet somebody, I have a very quick romance, if you want to call it that, I don't even know. But, you know, because of the upbringing I had and the culture I came from, I thought the best thing I could do after my cancer treatments wrapped and everything was just get my life back into a place where it was as close to normal as it can be. And I thought at 32 years old, the best thing I could do is get married and have a family. That just made sense in my mind. So I got married very quickly after meeting this person. And side note, a lot of people from evangelical cultures do that. Quick engagements are not unheard of by any means. So even though, like, to people who maybe aren't familiar with the culture at all, it sounds like, oh my gosh, you met somebody and like within 2 months you were married. I mean, that sounds like wild. Like, why would you do that? And that's a legitimate question. But you have to also understand that within the culture, that's not that unusual. It's not unusual at all, as a matter of fact. So I had this very quick relationship, got married, soon realized I made a mistake and left, but not before getting pregnant. During my pregnancy, I put on 70 pounds, maybe even more than that. So, you know, once again, I was not healthy. I was heavier than I wanted to be. I was not in a good place, mentally, physically, whatever. And it wouldn't be until my son was much older that I was able to start taking that off. So I was in that place for years. And during that time, I spent a lot of time shaming myself and beating myself up mentally and emotionally for, you know, having done all the work of losing, because, you know, even if you have gastric bypass, I'm here to tell you, losing that weight is still work, and don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Because if they tell you that it's easy, it's a lie. It is not easy. It's easier, but it's not easy. So I did all that work to lose all that weight, got pregnant, gained 70 pounds, and I felt like a failure. Well, when my son was old enough and started going to school, I decided it was time to get serious about getting this weight off. So I did. I lost a whole bunch of weight again. You know, and I would get compliments from people online, compliments even from people in my local community, telling me how awesome I looked. You know, you got a rockin' body. I remember somebody said that to me a few times when they saw me. And so, I mean, people had excuse me, a lot of good things to say about the fact that I'd taken off this weight. What they didn't know was that to do that, I was, you know what, I didn't even comb these out. I was working out intensely twice a day. I would work out in the morning, take my son to school, come home, take a shower and all that stuff, and then I'd crash. Or I'd take my son to school, work out, shower, and crash. So I was working out, and I did look really good, but it came at a price that was pretty high because I had nothing left to give anything else in my life. So I'd pick up my son from school and work out again, and, you know, make dinner and all that stuff. I was eating a different dinner than he was because I was being very strict with myself about what you know, about my food intake, what I would allow myself to eat. And I lost 50 pounds, maybe 60 pounds. And I was once again really thin and getting lots of attention for it. But I was also severely anemic. I ended up having to have iron transfusions because I was so anemic that my body was not able to fix that on its own, and I couldn't fix it with iron pills because I was so severely anemic. I had to have infusions to get balance back into my body as far as that went. So, but that did not change what I was doing. I kept working out, and I kept building the intensity of my workouts. And what ended up happening was my body just turned against me. It decided that, you know what, you are not doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. I feel like I'm not getting the nutrients and so forth that I need. You are exhausting me. So I'm going to go into a survival mode, and I'm going to start holding on to weight. So I ended up gaining weight again. And that was a few years ago, and I have not been able to get rid of it. You know, last summer, I was, you know, going to the track in the mornings. I was walking or jogging at least 5 miles, really working out. You know, I do lunges and lateral shuffles and all these cool things that I knew would build muscle, because I know that when you build muscle, you can metabolize calories better, etc., etc. And I just couldn't get rid of the weight. And here I am now. Now with, you know, the COVID pandemic and surgery, so between those two things, I have not been able to keep up on my fitness to nearly the degree that I would prefer. So all of this is to say, what does all this mean? Why am I telling you all this? Well, I'm telling you all this, first of all, because I know that there are a lot of people in the same situation I'm in, whether it's because of the quarantines, because of COVID, or if it's just something you were struggling with before COVID even happened. Maybe, you know, maybe you're somebody who really places a lot of value on how you look and your weight, and maybe that's been a struggle for you, and you're feeling like a failure because your body is not doing what you want it to do, and it's holding on to pounds you don't want it to hold on to. And one thing I learned through all of these ups and downs with my weight, and the times that I was thin, the times I was not thin, and this current time when I would love to be working out at the intensity that I prefer, but I physically can't. I cannot do it without causing injury to myself, because I'm, You know, I just had surgery in June. It's going to probably take me till the end of the year to fully feel the benefits of that surgery and for my body to completely heal. And if I were to work out at the intensity that I prefer, I would do serious damage to that healing process, and I would very likely need further procedures done, because when I work out at my preferred intensity, it is intense, and I like it that way, but I physically cannot do that right now. So all of this is to say, I know from my many experiences with weight gain and weight loss that it's very easy to place a lot of value on how your weight can determine your sense of identity and worth. When I had gastric bypass surgery and I ended up losing 125 pounds, I was actually really surprised to learn that my life did not just automatically get better. And that truly was a surprise to me, because I thought that, you know, the thing that was holding me back the most from having the kind of life I wanted was probably my weight. That's how I perceived the problem. And so it was shocking to me when that was not the case, that, you know, that I learned that, yeah, losing weight might help with some things, but if you haven't done the work to address the reasons why you were eating so much, and I do want to say this though, I want to say this right now, don't look at a person who has an issue with their weight and assume that it's because they don't know how to control their food intake and so forth. That is not always the case. In fact, a lot of times that's not the case. For me, it was. You know, and now, and I also want to say, since I had cancer though, it changed my body's, you know, the cancer treatments changed my health forever. And now I do have chronic conditions that can make working out very difficult and can make recovering from workouts, it takes a lot longer. So never, ever, ever, ever look at somebody who's carrying around extra weight and assume you know why they're doing it. I'm going to speak for myself and for anyone else who, at least initially, knows for a fact that they got to where they are because of their food intake. Now, having said all that, and I hope you listen, because I don't want you leaving this video thinking I'm saying, you know, the only thing that people who are overweight need to do is just watch what they eat, because that's not true. That is just patently false, and it's a misconception that really bothers me, because there are people out there who are carrying around a few extra pounds, or maybe a lot of extra pounds, for, you know, due to situations they have virtually no control over. And, you know, there are a lot of concerned trolls out there who feel it's their place to say things like, you know, I'm really glad that we're being inclusive, but we need to stop encouraging people to be fat. Or, gosh, that person is gorgeous, but I do worry about their health. Or, man, they look amazing, but what about their joints? And you know what? You know, just go screw yourself, because believe me when I tell you, people who are overweight, for whatever the reason is, we are very well aware, probably more than you could ever imagine, that carrying around extra weight presents problems. We are not oblivious to this, okay? And we're also not oblivious to the fact that, gosh, you know what? Some foods aren't great for you. We know this. You don't need to tell us. So if you're planning, you know, don't leave this video thinking that, you know, you're in any position to tell a person who's carrying around some extra pounds what they need to be doing to get better, because you're not. Let's just get that clear right now. But for me, my experience was, I thought once I lost some weight and got down to a size that I felt acceptable, which was ridiculously small for my body makeup, but you know, that's a different issue, that my life would just be so much better. I really believed this. And so it was shocking to me when that wasn't what happened. And what I've learned over the years of struggling with my weight is it is true when you are told that your weight and your size has remarkably little to do with your identity. And I think especially in a time when so much of life has changed, there are people who are struggling to know what their identity is when so much of what we use to identify ourselves has been taken away. And with good reason. But, you know, if you're somebody who identifies by being a hard worker at your job, and now you're being told, no, you got to work from home, and you're suddenly less busy, and you're feeling like you're not doing enough, and you're feeling a little bit lost, that's an identity issue too. Now, if you're somebody who, you know, has long struggled with being overweight, and you did something, whatever that something might be, to finally lose that weight, and you know, it's easy to feel lost there too, because for so many years you identified as somebody who's overweight, and let's be honest, in American culture, that is something people feel free to comment on, whether they know you or not. And even though losing weight is something that you might want to do, it can be jarring, number one, to no longer identify as an overweight person. And it, you know, if you've never been there, that sounds weird. Like, why would that be an issue? But trust me, having been both overweight and underweight, I can tell you that losing that identity as an overweight person is its own unique struggle. And that sounds weird to anybody who hasn't been there, but it really is a thing, that losing that feels like losing part of yourself, even if it's something that you wanted to do. Okay. But I have learned over the years that we are not our weight, we are not our size, we are not our relationship with gravity when we step on a scale. We are so much more than that, but we live in a culture that conditions us to believe that we are entirely defined by these external factors. And so it's frustrating. And for a lot of people right now who are not able to do the things that they like to do to maintain their fitness, or maybe you are able to do them, but you were unable to do them for so long that getting back into it has proven difficult, or whatever the case might be, it's easy to feel some sense of an identity crisis. It's easy to feel that because you've gained weight for whatever reason, that you as a person have changed. And you know, we live in a culture that really celebrates people who are disciplined enough to not put on even 1 extra pound, and really shames people who have extra weight regardless of the reasons. And even if somebody is, carrying around extra weight because they are eating foods that aren't the best for them, first of all, that's none of your business. And you don't have the right to comment on it just because you see it. And secondly, you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know what struggles they are having in their lives, that, you know, maybe food for them is the, you know, the least damaging of their options. You know, when somebody is stressed out and going through some stuff, I would prefer they have a cupcake instead of drinking or taking drugs to make it all go away for a little bit. I mean, it just kind of boggles my mind that there is so much shame attached to using food for comfort, because the reality is we all use things for comfort. And some, you know, I think it's because sometimes, obviously, the damage from using food for comfort is more apparent to everyone around you if you're doing that too frequently. And so because it's more apparent, people feel like they can comment on it. They shouldn't. They can't. At least not without being a total jerk. I know that for me, when I was at my most, I guess, obsessed with fitness, I used exercise like a drug. So there's nothing better about abusing my body that way as opposed to having too many sweets. You know, I still suffered. I still ended up causing medical problems for myself. So I don't understand this logic that, you know, somebody abusing food is somehow worse and worthy of people's comment and criticism more so than someone who is abusing, say, alcohol, or has an addiction to online shopping when they're just not feeling their best, or someone who uses exercise as an escape and exercises themselves into a medical emergency. I think that people comment on weight and treat being fat as such a crime just because it's something that is obvious. It's not something that can easily be hidden away. And if people can make fun of other people for carrying around extra pounds, it certainly makes, you know, it makes it easier for them to deflect from their own hang-ups, their own problems. So that was kind of a side note, but it is something that is a struggle in this society that we live in, where people feel like they are at liberty to comment on someone else's weight. Now, for example, I do not like our current president whatsoever, at all. There is nothing about him that I like. I do not think he has any redeeming qualities whatsoever. Usually, even if a person is just rotten to the core, you can find something about them that redeems them somehow. I do not see it with this guy. However, I will be the first one to speak up and say, talking about his weight is off limits. If the only thing you can go after about somebody is their weight, that really to me means you don't have much. You don't have much to go on. Because if you really had any legitimate grievances against them, you would have a whole lot more to talk about than just their appearance. So all of this is to tell you, if you are struggling, first of all, know that you're not alone, because this season that we're in is doing this to a lot of people. You know, a lot of people are feeling like they've dropped the ball with their fitness over the last 6 months, and they don't know how they're going to get back on track. So you're not alone in that. Secondly, your weight and the appearance of your body is probably one of the least important things about you, to be perfectly blunt about it. It's probably one of the least interesting things about you. And the people who would say otherwise are probably people who just don't have your best interests in mind. And they are not people that you should invest a lot in as far as their opinion of you is concerned. So I don't know if that eases your mind or if it makes things worse. But I did think it was important to discuss this. I saw a tweet a couple days ago from someone who was mentioning that just being home... Oh no! Please hold. I just dropped my eyeshadow palette and I hope I didn't break it. Oh, thank goodness. Just being home during the pandemic and having to work from home has been difficult for them because they find their identity in being busy all the time. And they're not busy enough at home and they don't know what to do. It's making them feel inadequate and making them feel like they're not doing their job. There are so many ways that our identities have been challenged in the last few months. And for some of us, weight is one of them. For others, it is... There's a thunderstorm. It is our busyness, because we think being busy is important. That's like a big thing in our American culture. And if we're not busy, that means we're not doing enough. If we're not so busy, we can barely keep track of when was the last time we ate. You know, we've placed a lot of importance on being so busy that we neglect ourselves, which is very weird. And so a lot of people at this stage of the game, having been, you know, less busy for the last several months, are having an identity crisis, a true identity crisis, because they don't know what to do when they're just left to grapple with the things that busyness distracts them from. And, you know, when I had cancer, I lost so many things that I had used to identify myself. I lost a lot of external things that I used to shape my identity. I lost a job that I loved. I lost an apartment it had taken me years to finally feel, you know, healthy and confident enough to move into, because I'd struggled with depression for so long that it was debilitating. And I finally got out on my own, and then I got cancer, or was diagnosed with cancer. Who knows how long it was actually there. But whether it's your weight, or it's your busyness at your job, or it's, you know, the hobbies that you enjoy that maybe you can't do right at this moment, whatever the case is, a lot of these external identifiers that we've used to shape our identities, they're very fragile, because a lot of it can be taken away just like that. You know, I did not know after I had cancer that I was going to develop a chronic health issue that was going to make working out so difficult. I also did not know that I was going to, you know, sustain an injury that was going to require surgery, and that the surgery was going to take 6 months to recover from. I did not know any of this. So a lot of the things over the years that I've used to shape my identity have been things that can easily be taken away. So my challenge to you, I will share with you in just a minute. I'm going to finish this off camera because it's about to get dicey. All right, I'm far enough along in this that I feel comfortable coming back on. So my challenge to you, if you are one of the people who is in that situation where so much of your identity has changed over the last however long, whether it's because of COVID-19, whether it's because of things that have happened in your life that you didn't feel you had control over, you know, whatever the case might be, and whether it's because you're struggling with, you know, the changes made in your body because of quarantine and so forth, and that comfort eating that I would venture to say all of us have done over the last several months. Look at yourself beyond your external identifiers and see who you are without them. And that's not an easy thing to do. It challenges everything that we're told matters in our culture, because we are a culture that places a lot of importance on those external identifiers. But I'm challenging you today to look past those things and to see if you can still find yourself without those external identifiers. And if you don't know who you are without those external things, that's a good indication that it's time to do some work. And I don't say this to you as somebody who has it all together. I say this to you as someone who is constantly doing that work and constantly challenging my own ideas about myself, because like most people, I have placed a high premium on those external things, and it's been to my own I have such a hard time with this word, detriment. Over the years, it has cost me opportunities. It has cost me my voice that I could have used when it counted more, you know, when it really counts. and because I didn't feel that I was worthy, I didn't speak up, and etc., etc. So knowing who you are without those external things is crucially important. All right. I thought I was far enough along in this. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. So if you had to, you know, maybe you could do this today. If you had to describe yourself in a way that used no external identifiers whatsoever, you know, I don't want to know about what you do. I want to know about who you are. It might be interesting to see if you could do that in the comments. You know, can you, excuse me, can you describe yourself accurately without saying I work at, I do this, my hobbies are, etc. Think on that. All right, I'm gonna be right back just one more time, and you'll get to see the finished look. All right, here it is. Ah. All right, so anyway, I think I made all the points I wanted to make today. I can't believe I just did that. Anyway, so I really do want to know, how would you describe yourself if you had to eliminate all external identifiers that you have up to this point used for your identity? Can you tell me about yourself, like who you are, not what you do? I really want to know, so leave that in comments. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening to me blah 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 about the things that are on my mind. If you find these videos entertaining, beneficial, whatever the case may be, please like and subscribe and share, and take really good care of yourselves. Be good to yourself, be good to other people. Take time for some human interaction today. Don't just restrict yourself to social media if you can help that. We lose so much by not having that human contact, and I really feel that when I actually do have human contact, and I'm like, wow, I kind of missed this. Yeah, I missed it. All right, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time. Bye.